Mafia boss got a wrong call. He showed up anyway, and it changed his life forever. The ice made a single, sharp crack in the glass. It was the only sound in the penthouse, save for the whisper of the ventilation outside. Chicago was a carpet of diamonds spread 30 floors below, silent and cold. I stared at the lights, the bourbon, 18 years old and smooth as velvet, burning a familiar path down my throat. It was almost 2 a.m. Silence at this hour is clean. It's honest. Then the phone buzzed. It wasn't my work phone, the encrypted one that sat dark on the marble bar. This was the private line, the one that meant family, or blood, or betrayal, the one that only a half-dozen people in the world had the number to. I picked it up on the second ring, my voice flat. Yeah. A breath hitched on the other end. Not a voice, just air, then a whisper. Please, I think he's still out there. I'm hiding. I don't know who else to call. He said he was coming back. It was a woman. The voice was thin, reedy, like dry leaves skittering on pavement. I felt the irritation rise first. A wrong number on this line was more than an inconvenience. It was a security breach. Who is this? I demanded. Isn't this the downtown crisis center? The women's shelter, the number they gave me? 606-555? She was rambling, the panic rolling off her in waves. Oh God, I got it wrong. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She was about to hang up. I should have let her. It was a mistake. None of my business. My world is built on the foundation of minding my own business, unless I'm paid to do otherwise. But then she whispered, so quiet I almost missed it. He's going to kill me. It wasn't the words. I've heard those words before. It was the sound under them. It was the sound of someone who had been screaming for so long. They had nothing left but a whisper. It was genuine. It was raw. And it cut through the bourbon haze. Where are you? I asked. My voice was calm, the one I use before I break a man's hand. I can't. He'll find me. He knows. Oh God, he's here. No, he's not. Tell me where you are. I'll send someone. I'm near the park, the one with the... A sound cut her off, a heavy thud. Somewhere in her background, she whimpered. The corner of Monroe and Kilpatrick, the red brick building, the one that's boarded up. I'm in the stairwell. The line clicked, dead. I stood there for a second, the phone heavy in my hand. Monroe and Kilpatrick, that's West Side. Garfield Park, not just a rough neighborhood, it's a forgotten one. A place the city ceded to the wolves long ago. I set the phone down. I could call Marco, my head of security, have him send a few guys, clean, detached. But I didn't. I walked to the bar, opened the drawer, and took out the Sig Sauer. I checked the clip, chambered around, and tucked it into the small of my back. The cold steel a familiar comfort against my skin. I grabbed my keys. I didn't take the Bentley. I took the black sedan from the private garage, the one that looked like every other car on the road and could hit 150 miles an hour without breathing hard. I didn't call Marco. I didn't call a driver. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the bourbon. Maybe it was the silence of the penthouse. Or maybe it was just that for the first time in a long time, I heard something that wasn't a lie or a request. The drive from the Gold Coast to the West Side is like descending through the circles of hell. The streets get wider, darker. The gleaming towers of steel and glass give way to brick skeletons and empty lots choked with weeds. The air itself feels heavier, thick with the smell of damp concrete and desperation. I found the building, red brick, just as she'd said. The windows were gaping mouths, covered in plywood. It was a tomb. I parked half a block down, engine off, lights out. I sat for a full minute, watching. The street was dead. No cars. No one, just a street light flickering on the corner, casting a sick orange glow. I got out. The lock on the plywood door was a joke. I palmed it open with a shove, the sound of rotting wood splitting loud in the quiet. The lobby stank of piss, Mold and something else, something sweet and rotten. I ignored it. My hand was on the cig, but I didn't draw it. The stairwell was to the left, a concrete shaft disappearing into the black. "Hello?" I called out. My voice was low, but it echoed. Silence. I started up the stairs, my shoes grating on the sandy concrete. "I'm the one you called. I'm not here to hurt you." I reached the landing between the second and third floors. It was darker here, the windows completely boarded. I almost missed her. She was huddled in the deepest shadow, knees to her chest, trying to make herself small, trying to disappear into the wall itself. I stopped 5 steps below her. I could see the movement of her breath, the rapid, shallow shivering. "Claire?" I chanced it. She flinched, a small animal caught in a trap. She looked up. The moon found a crack in the plywood, cutting a single slash of white light across her face. She was a mess. Her lip was split wide open, the blood dried black on her chin. A dark, ugly bruise was blooming on her jaw, spreading up to her temple. It was the clear, sharp imprint of a hand. She was wearing a thin t-shirt and jeans, soaked through. Who are you?" she whispered. Her eyes were huge, darting from my face to the stairs below, expecting someone else to follow. "My name is Dante." I kept my voice perfectly level, calm. "This is how you handle a spooked horse. You don't make sudden moves. I'm the one you spoke to on the phone." You're not from the crisis center." It wasn't a question. "No, you dialed the wrong number." The realization hit her, and with it, a new wave of fear. She thought she'd summoned someone worse. In her world, that was probably true. "I don't have any money," she whispered, a last, desperate plea. I don't have anything. I don't want your money." I stayed where I was. I showed her my hands, open, away from my back. "You sounded like you were in trouble. I came to see if you were." She stared at me, just stared. She wasn't processing my words. She was processing me. The suit, the watch, the fact that I was standing in a condemned building at 3 a.m. like I owned it. She was looking for the angle. In her world, just like in mine, nobody does anything for free. "He's a cop," she blurted out, as if that explained everything. He'll be back. He said he'd find me. He's not here now." I took 1 step up. She flinched, but she didn't run. "I have a car. I'll take you somewhere safe, somewhere he can't find you." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's cold, and you're bleeding, and no one should be hiding in a place like this." I offered her a hand. She looked at my hand for a long time. It was the hand that had signed death warrants and loyalty checks, sometimes in the same day. To her, it was just a hand, a way out. She took it. Her skin was ice. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. I pulled her to her feet and she winced, a sharp intake of breath as her bruised ribs protested. I didn't let go of her hand. I led her down the stairs, 1 slow step at a time, checking the shadows as we went. When we hit the street, I moved fast, walking behind her, shielding her with my body until we reached the sedan. I opened the passenger door, put her inside, and was behind the wheel in seconds. The engine turned over with a low growl. We drove for 10 minutes in silence. I didn't go back to the penthouse, never to the penthouse. I have places, dozens of them, anonymous, clean, secure. Apartments bought under shell corporations, used for business or for nights when I didn't want to be found. I took her to a high-rise in the South Loop, private garage, private elevator. We didn't see a single person. The apartment was on the 14th floor. It was sterile, all gray and white and chrome, with a view of the lake that was just a sheet of black. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice a little stronger. She was standing in the middle of the expensive rug, looking lost. "A safe house. No one knows you're here. No one knows this address is connected to me." I shrugged off my jacket and tossed it on a chair. "You're safe here, for tonight." I went to the kitchen. The fridge was stocked, always. Water, juice, eggs. I grabbed a bottle of water and the first aid kit from under the sink. I tossed her the water. She fumbled it, but caught it. Sit, I said, motioning to the leather couch. She sat on the very edge, rigid. I sat on the coffee table opposite her. I opened the kit, antiseptic wipes, butterfly bandages. I can do it, she said, reaching for the wipe. Her hand was still shaking. I'm sure you can, I said. I took the wipe and dabbed it at the corner of her split lip. She sucked in her breath but didn't pull away. Her eyes, they were green. Not just green, but that deep, dark forest green, like moss in a shadow. They never left my face. She was watching me, trying to figure out what kind of monster I was. You're bleeding on your arm, I noted. She looked down. A long, shallow cut was welling up with blood on her forearm. She'd probably done it on a piece of rebar in the stairwell. I cleaned that, too. She was quiet. Why are you doing this? She finally asked again. The same question from the stairwell. I told you. You called. I finished with the bandage. Who is he? She looked down at her hands, twisting the water bottle. His name is Derek Kellen. The name meant nothing to me. He was my boyfriend. I left him 3 weeks ago. She took a shaky breath. He's a cop. Officer Derek Kellen, 19th Precinct. He's decorated. Hero of the Year, 2 years running. The way she said hero was like spitting poison. Now I was listening. I hate cops. I own cops. I use cops. I break cops. But they are a part of the ecosystem I have to navigate. He did this, I stated. She gave a short, bitter laugh that turned into a wince. This is nothing. This is just what happens when I don't answer his calls fast enough. I left. I thought I was free, but he's connected. Connected how? It's not just him. It's a ring inside the department. They move things, drugs, weapons, other things. They use the police database, the uniforms. They're protected. I worked in a diner near the precinct. I heard things. I saw things. I didn't know what they were. Not really. Not until I tried to leave. Her voice went flat. I went to his captain. I filed a report. I had pictures. The captain, he smiled at me. He told me Derek was a good man and that I was hysterical. An hour later, Derek was at my apartment. He told me the captain was his godfather. He told me if I ever spoke again, he'd put me in a hole where no one would ever find me. So I ran. Tonight, he found me. I sat back. The fury that hit me was cold. Not hot, not red. It was the blue-white cold of a glacier. I knew corruption. I thrived on it. But this was different. This was rot. This was the system, the official system, turning on itself to devour the people it was supposed to protect. It was a perfect, closed loop of terror. A woman with no power, no money, against a man who was the power. I'm nobody, she whispered, as if reading my thoughts. I'm just a girl who poured coffee, and he's a hero. Who do you think they're going to believe? I looked at her, really looked at her. The bruises, the terror, but underneath it, the resilience. She had survived. She had run. She had hidden in that tomb of a building, and, against all odds, she had made a call. I believe you, I said. The words hung in the air. I watched her shoulders, which had been up around her ears, drop an inch, then another. The fight went out of her, replaced by an exhaustion so profound it was a miracle she was still upright. You haven't eaten, I said. It wasn't a question. I went back to the kitchen. I'm no chef, but I can manage. The fridge had bread, cheddar, butter. I made 2 grilled cheese sandwiches on the stove. It was 4 a.m. I couldn't remember the last time I'd made my own food. I put the plate on the coffee table. She stared at it like it was a foreign object. Eat, I said, sitting in the armchair across from her. She picked up half a sandwich and took a small, hesitant bite, then a larger one. We ate in silence. The only sound in the $1 million apartment was the quiet chewing and the hum of the city far below. I watched the tension unwind from her spine. She was letting her guard down, not because she trusted me, but because she was too damn tired to keep it up. My name is Claire, she said, her mouth half full. I know, I said. She looked up, startled. How? You said it on the phone, when you thought I was the hotline. Oh, she looked down at her plate. You have a very calm voice for a crisis counselor. A small smile touched my lips. I couldn't help it. I'm not a counselor, Claire. I figured that out, she said, her voice dry. The car, this place, the fact that you weren't afraid to go into that building. She met my eyes. The fear was still there, but now there was curiosity. What are you? I sipped the water I'd grabbed. I'm a man who doesn't like loose ends, and I don't like men who hide behind a badge to hurt women. It wasn't the whole truth. It wasn't even close, but it was the only truth that mattered right now. I showed her the guest room. It was as untouched as the rest of the place. Fresh towels in the bathroom, a new toothbrush in the plastic. Get some sleep. The door locks from the inside. You're safe. I promise. She nodded, her eyes glossy with fatigue. Thank you, Dante. I went back to the living room. I wasn't going to sleep. I sat in the dark, looking out at the lake as it started to turn from black to a deep, bruised purple. I pulled out my phone, my work phone. I sent one text to Marco. Officer Derek Kellen, 19th Precinct. I want everything. I want his partners, his bank accounts, his routes, everything now. An hour passed. The city was waking up, but in here, it was silent. Then I heard it. A small sound, almost nothing. A choked sob, the kind of sound you make when you're trying to cry without anyone hearing. I found her in the guest room. She hadn't locked the door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, knees drawn up to her chest, her face buried in her arms. She was shaking again, her whole body racked with silent tears. I didn't say anything. I just sat on the bed, a few feet away. The mattress dipped, and she looked up, her face wet and raw. I'm sorry, she whispered, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being scared. You don't have to be, I said, my voice softer than I intended. Not tonight. You don't understand, she sobbed. He'll find me. He always finds me. He's a cop. He has resources. He'll finish it. He'll kill me. And they'll call it an overdose or a suicide, and everyone will believe it. I moved closer. I didn't plan to. I put my hand on her shoulder. She was so small, all sharp angles and trembling. No, he won't. She leaned into the touch, just slightly, a desperate, unconscious search for solid ground. You don't know him. He doesn't know me, I said. I used my thumb to wipe a tear from her cheek. My skin was rough from the gym, from holding things. Her skin was soft, but cold. Her hand came up, sudden and quick, covering mine. She didn't pull it away. She pressed it against her cheek, her fingers gripping my knuckles like a lifeline. Her skin was freezing. Our eyes locked. It wasn't sexual. It was elemental. A short circuit. In that moment, I saw all of it. The pain, the exhaustion, the unbelievable, stubborn strength that had kept her alive in that stairwell. I have women. I can have any woman I want. Models, heiresses, socialites. They come to me with their eyes wide, hungry for the power, for the danger. They look at me with calculation, or fear, or a desire that's as polished and hard as a diamond. This was different. This woman, Claire, looked at me like I was the first and only solid thing she had touched in years. It unsettled me, deeply. It drew me in a way I hadn't been drawn in since I was a kid. I am Dante Moretti. I run the Vincenzio family. I run the shadows of this city, and I could not look away from a broke, terrified girl who worked in a diner. I can't sleep, she whispered, her voice thick. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. And then I stood up. Come on. I led her back to the living room. The sky was turning a pale, sickly gray. I sat in the corner of the large sectional couch. She hesitated, then sat at the far end. As far from me as she could get, I turned on the small lamp on the end table, leaving the bright overheads off. The room filled with a soft, warm light. Tell me something, she said quietly. staring at the floor. Something normal. I was at a loss. My normal is not normal, I thought for a moment. I don't like heights. She looked up, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. You brought me to a high-rise. I saw your penthouse from the car. I know. I live on the 30th floor. I looked out the window. It's a reminder. Control the fear. Don't let it control you. She absorbed that, her head tilted. A few minutes of silence passed. Her breathing started to even out. The adrenaline that had kept her going for hours, maybe days, was finally leaving her system. The crash was coming hard. Her head nodded. Once, twice. She listed, slowly, sideways. I didn't move. She slumped until her head was resting on the back cushion, then in her sleep. She slid, inch by inch, until her head was resting in my lap. She tensed. Even in her unconscious state, a small murmur leaving her lips. Sorry. It's fine, I said, my voice a low rumble. Sleep. Claire, I'm right here. I'm not leaving. It took maybe 5 minutes. The tension bled out of her, muscle by muscle, until she was a dead weight against my leg. Her breathing deepened. She was finally, truly, asleep. I sat there in the dawning light of Chicago. The phone buzzed on the coffee table. The preliminary report from Marco. I didn't look at it. My hand was resting on the cushion, near her head. My fingers brushed her hair. It was dark, tangled, but softer than it looked. Dante Moretti, the boss of the Vincenzio family, the man who had ordered executions before breakfast, was sitting in a sterile safe house with a bruised woman sleeping in my lap, all because she had dialed the wrong number. My world was built on rules, on debts, on power and retribution. This fit none of those. I had every woman in the city I could want, and I was transfixed by the one I'd found broken in a stairwell. I looked down at her face, the bruising stark in the morning light, but her expression, for the first time, peaceful. And for the first time in a decade, I had no idea what I was going to do next. Everything I thought I knew, every hard line I'd drawn to protect myself, suddenly felt like smoke. I left her sleeping in my lap until the sun was fully up. It was just past 6 a.m. when I finally shifted. She was a dead weight, her breathing deep and even. I slid my arms under her, one beneath her knees and one behind her back, and lifted her. She was lighter than I expected, a collection of fragile bones and a stubborn will. She murmured in her sleep, her face instinctively turning into the fabric of my shirt, seeking warmth. I carried her to the guest room and laid her on the bed. I pulled the comforter over her. She didn't stir. I went back to the living room, my suit rumpled, my body stiff. I had not slept. I picked up my phone. The report from Marco had been sitting there for hours. I opened it. Officer Derek Kellen, 19th Precinct. The file was clean, spotless. Commendations, citations, 2 Officer of the Year awards, on paper. He was a saint in blue. But Marco doesn't just look at the paper. He looks at the space between the paper. He had dug deeper, into the sealed and expunged records. 3 domestic disturbance calls to Kellen's previous address. All 3 logged by the same dispatch, responded to by the same 2 officers. All 3 marked unfounded. 2 excessive force complaints, both filed by suspects who were later convicted on unrelated charges. Both complaints were withdrawn after the suspects' families were visited by officers from Kellen's unit. A witness to one of the incidents, a convenience store clerk, had changed his story overnight, claiming he misremembered what he saw. It was a textbook cover-up, not just one man's violence, but a systematic, coordinated effort to erase it. Claire wasn't paranoid. She was a target, and the system she had turned to for help was the very thing holding the gun. My jaw tightened. This was no longer just a cop with a temper. This was an organization. And they had made a mistake. They had let one of their victims run right into my hands. I heard a sound from the bedroom and looked up. Claire was standing in the doorway, her hair a wild, dark tangle around her face. She was wearing the clothes from last night, crumpled and stained. She looked like a ghost, haunting the edges of a life she didn't recognize. "You're still here," she whispered. Her voice was rough from sleep. "I'm still here." I walked to the kitchen and started the coffee maker. The smell of dark roast filled the sterile air. "You slept hard." She wrapped her arms around her stomach, a self-protective gesture. I'm sorry about last night. On the couch, I didn't mean to." "You needed to sleep," I said, not turning around. "I found 2 clean mugs. Black or... well, I only have black." "Black is fine." She drifted closer, drawn by the coffee, but kept her distance. Perching on one of the bar stools, the morning light was cruel. It highlighted the deep, ugly purple of the bruise on her jaw. Her split lip was swollen. I poured 2 cups and slid one across the granite island to her. She wrapped her icy hands around it. "I don't know what to do," she said, staring into the mug. "He knows where I was hiding. He'll find me again. He won't stop." "He won't find you here." I took a sip. The coffee was bitter. "But you can't stay here. This place is temporary. I'm moving you." Her head snapped up. "Moving me? Where? Look, Dante." I can't pay you for this, I told you. I have nothing." "I don't recall sending you a bill, Claire." "That's not what I mean." Her voice was sharp, a flash of the strength I'd seen in the stairwell. "People like you. People with safe houses and cars that lose tails. They don't do things for free. I can't be in your debt. I just got out from under one man. I can't just trade one owner for another." I put my mug down. I leaned on the counter, my arms crossed. "You think I'm him?" "I think everyone is him until proven otherwise." She shot back. "What do you want from me?" I studied her. The fear was still there, but it was being overshadowed by a fierce, ragged pride. She wasn't just a victim. She was a fighter who had run out of ground. "It's not a debt," I said, my voice low. "It's a choice. My choice. You fell into my world by mistake. That makes you my responsibility. That's it." "Your responsibility," she repeated, tasting the word, "like I'm a lost dog you found." "A dog I would have left in the street," I countered. "You're a woman who was targeted by a man who uses a badge as a weapon. I have a problem with that. Let me handle it." "Handle it? How?" She slid off the stool, her eyes blazing. "Are you going to hurt him? Are you going to kill him? Is that how your world works?" "My world works on balance," I said evenly. "He unbalanced the scales. I'm going to set them right." "I don't want him dead," she whispered, the fight draining out of her. I just want him to stop. I want him exposed. I want people to see what he is." I almost laughed. "You still believe in that? You still think the system will save you? The system is what's hunting you. So what's the alternative? You're handling it? More violence? More blood?" "The alternatives," I said, grabbing my keys from the counter, "is staying alive. And right now, I'm the only one offering that. Go get your things." "I don't have any things," she said bitterly. "Good, then let's go." The ride to the new apartment was quiet. I took the sedan again. I watched the mirrors. Claire sat pressed against the passenger door, as far from me as she could get, watching the city go by. She looked like a tourist in her own life. We were on Lakeshore Drive, heading north, when I saw it, a dark blue Crown Victoria, unmarked. It had been 3 cars back when we left the garage. Now it was 2. It wasn't Kellen. This driver was good. He kept his distance. Didn't make any aggressive moves. He was professional. Claire hadn't noticed. She was staring at the lake. "He's good," I said, more to myself than to her. Her head whipped around. "What, who?" "The man following us. He's been on our tail since we left the garage." Panic flared in her eyes, hot and immediate. "Oh God, it's him. It's Derek's people. He found us. How did he find us?" "He didn't find us," I said, my voice calm. "He found me. They must have been watching your old building. Saw my car. They're not sloppy." I checked the mirror again, but I'm better. I didn't speed up. I kept the same pace. I took the exit for Fullerton, casual. The Crown Vic followed. I turned right. then another right, then a third. He was still there. Confirmed. "Hold on," I said. Claire gripped the door handle. "What are you doing?" Losing him. I waited until the light at the intersection ahead turned yellow. A truck was making a slow left turn. I floored it. The sedan's engine roared, a deep-throated sound. We shot past the truck. Through the intersection, just as the light turned red, I heard the blare of a horn behind us. I looked in the mirror. The Crown Vic was stuck, blocked by the truck and a wall of cross-traffic. I didn't slow down. I took a hard left into an alley, the tires screaming on the pavement. I cut through a parking garage, exited onto a different street, and merged back into traffic heading west, away from the lake. I drove for another 10 minutes, making random turns, until I was sure we were clean. Claire was breathing hard, her knuckles white on the door. My God, they're gone. I pulled into the underground garage of an anonymous 20-story beige brick building in Lincoln Park. It was the kind of building you see 1,000 of. Forgettable. Perfect. The apartment was small, but clean. A one-bedroom, furnished with bland, sturdy furniture. It had one purpose: to be invisible. "This is it," I said. "The fridge is stocked. The lease is paid for 6 months. No one will find you here." She walked to the window, which overlooked a courtyard. She was trembling. He found me. He found you. He's not going to stop." I pulled a phone from my jacket pocket. It was a simple, old-fashioned burner. "This is yours." She looked at it. "It's a ghost," I explained. "It can't be traced. It makes calls. It receives calls. Nothing else. There is one number programmed into it." I tapped the speed dial. "Mine. That is the only number you call. If you're hungry, you call me. If you're scared, you call me. If the building is on fire, you do not call 911. You call me. Do you understand?" She took the phone, her hand closing around it. She was my prisoner, but she was a safe one. "Don't leave this apartment," I said. "Not for anything. I'll have clothes and supplies sent over. Someone will leave them outside the door. You don't open it until they're gone." "Dante," she said, her voice small. "The man in that car, that was a cop." "I know." You're getting involved with the police. For me, they could hurt you." I almost smiled. "Let me worry about them." I turned to leave. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. That same desperate question. I paused at the door. "Because he was sloppy. He let you live. And you made a phone call. Go lock the door." I left her there. I didn't go back to the penthouse. I went to my office. A quiet, soundproofed room in the back of an old Italian social club in Little Italy. My real office. I made one call. "Rico, I have a tag. Officer Derek Kellen. I want eyes on him. I want to know when he breathes, when he eats, and who he talks to. I want to know tonight." Rico was the best. He was invisible. He'd be on Kellen in an hour. I waited. I drank espresso. I looked at the maps of my city. I thought about the fear in her eyes when she saw that Crown Vic. My phone rang at 10 o'clock that night. It was Rico. "Boss," he said, his voice a whisper. "You were right. This guy's connected." "Where is he?" "Jean and Giorgetti, the steakhouse. He's in a private room. He's not alone." My gut tightened. Who's with him? Lieutenant Frank Graziano, from the Narcotics Task Force, and Judge Alastair Monroe. I went cold. Graziano. He effectively ran the drug trade on the north side, using his badge to eliminate all his competition. And Monroe. Monroe was the one who signed the search warrants, the one who dismissed the cases. This wasn't a few dirty cops. This was a triumvirate. This was an enterprise. Claire hadn't just seen an abuser. She had seen the top of the pyramid. She was a witness to the entire rotten structure. "Stay on them," I said, and hung up. I drove. I didn't know where I was going, but my hands knew. I found myself back in Lincoln Park, outside her building. It was almost midnight. I let myself into her apartment. I had a key to every safe house. I was quiet. I needed to check, to see that she was still there, that she was safe. The apartment was dark. I found her in the bedroom. She was asleep, but it wasn't the deep, exhausted sleep of the morning. This was fitful. She was twisting in the sheets, her hands clenched. She was murmuring, "No, no, Derek, please, don't." I stood in the corner, in the shadow, just watching. "Please stop! The knife!" Then she screamed, not a loud scream, but a choked, terrified gasp that ripped her from the nightmare. She sat bolt upright in bed, her eyes wide and blind with terror. She was still in the memory. "You get out!" she yelled, scrambling backward against the headboard, pulling the sheet up to her chin. "Stay away from me, Derek!" She saw a man's silhouette in her bedroom, and her mind filled in the blank. "Claire," my voice was low, calm. "It's me. It's Dante." I didn't move. I kept my hands open at my sides. "You're in the apartment. You're in Lincoln Park. You're safe. You were dreaming." Who? She was hyperventilating, her eyes darting around the room, trying to make sense of where she was. "Dante? I'm right here." I took one slow step forward. "I came to check on you. You were having a nightmare." She looked at her hands, at the bland beige walls. The reality of the safe house slowly seeped back in, pushing the nightmare out. "Oh, God," she whispered. She buried her face in her hands. "Oh, God, it felt so real." "What did you see?" I asked, sitting on the edge of the chair in the corner. The last night, before I ran." Her voice was muffled by her hands. He found out I'd been copying his files, the ones on his laptop, the ledgers. He cornered me in the kitchen. He had his service weapon, but he took a knife from the block. He said a bullet was too fast. He said he wanted to carve his name on me, so I'd never forget who I belonged to." She was sobbing now, a raw, ugly sound that tore through the quiet apartment. I moved from the chair to the bed. I sat on the edge, not touching her. "He's not here, Claire." "He had the knife to my throat," she cried, looking up at me, her face a mask of old terror. I grabbed a pan of boiling water. I threw it at him. That's how I got out. I just ran. I didn't even grab my shoes." She collapsed, her whole body folding in on itself. I couldn't stay on the edge. I moved closer. I put my hand on her back, rubbing circles between her shoulder blades. It was an automatic, comforting gesture. She was vibrating like a plucked string. "He will never touch you again," I said. My voice was rough, thick with a cold fury I hadn't felt in years. "I swear on my family's name." In my world, that is an oath of blood. It cannot be broken. She must have heard the finality in my voice. She leaned into my touch, her sobs quieting. She pulled back, just enough to look at me. Her face was a mess, wet with tears, her eyes red. "You promise?" she whispered. "I promise." I used my thumb to wipe a tear from her cheek. My hand was calloused, her skin was soft. My hand lingered, cupping her jaw. Her breathing was still ragged, a hitching, broken sound. Her eyes searched mine. They were so green. She wasn't looking at me like I was a monster or a savior. She was looking at me like I was the only solid thing in a world that was trying to drown her. I felt the shift. It was a drop in pressure, a change in the air. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. I don't know who moved first. It didn't matter. I leaned in, and she met me halfway. The kiss was hesitant. It was soft and slow. It wasn't about passion or desire. Not yet. It was about comfort. It was about, "I'm here." It was about, "You're real." It tasted like salt from her tears. Her hand came up, not to push me away, but to grip the front of my shirt, holding on like I was a lifeline. My other hand moved from her back to her neck, my fingers sliding into her hair. The kiss deepened. It was slow, an exploration. It was a question, and it was an answer. It was the most dangerous thing I had done all day. It was a promise I didn't know if I could keep. It was full of an unresolved, aching need that had nothing to do with sex and everything to do with being seen. Then, as quickly as it started, she pulled back. She broke the kiss, pushing against my chest, her eyes wide with a new kind of panic. "I can't," she gasped, scrambling away from me. I'm sorry. I'm a mess. I can't do this. I'm broken." She looked down, ashamed to be touched, ashamed to want to be touched. "Hey." I kept my voice gentle. "Look at me." She wouldn't. "Claire, you have nothing to apologize for." I stood up. I didn't crowd her. Nothing. I went to the door, locked this behind me. I left. I walked the streets for an hour. Then I drove back to the penthouse. The 30-floor view didn't calm me. I poured a bourbon. The ice cracked in the glass. I stared out at the city, at the endless carpet of diamonds. I was angry. I was angry at Kellen for existing. I was angry at Graziano and Monroe for protecting him. But mostly, I was angry at myself. That kiss, that feeling, that was a liability. It was a weakness. It was how men like me fall, not from a rival's bullet, but from a pair of green eyes and the taste of salt. I had involved myself. I had sworn an oath. I was angry at how much I suddenly cared. Across town, in a dark bar in River North, Derek Kellen's phone vibrated. It was his man, the one who had been in the Crown Vic. "Derek, we lost her. The car she was in, it wasn't a civilian. The driver was a pro. Lost me in under 2 minutes." "What kind of car?" Kellen growled. "A black sedan, expensive, looked armored. Whoever she's with, they're not just friends. They're organized. They're powerful." Kellen hung up the phone. He stared into his beer. She thought she could run. She thought she could hide. Now she had found someone, a protector, someone powerful. He smiled, a thin, cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I don't care who he is," he whispered to the empty bar. "I don't care if he's the goddamn king of the city. She's mine, and I'm going to finish what I started." The report from Marco came in 2 days later. It wasn't a text message this time. It was a manila envelope, delivered by hand to my office at the social club. Marco sat opposite me, his face grim, while I read it. I had to read the first page twice. My stomach, which I thought was made of iron, twisted into a knot of ice. "Human trafficking," I said, the words tasting like ash. Marco nodded. "It's not just drugs and weapons. That's the side business. The real money is this. Kellen, Graziano, and Monroe. They're running a pipeline." I kept reading. It was sophisticated. They used the police database to identify runaways, missing persons, and low-level offenders with no family, vulnerable, forgotten. Just like Claire said, they would arrest them on minor charges, get them lost in the system, and then they'd just disappear, shipped out of state, sold. "The files she copied," I said, "they weren't just drug ledgers. They were invoices. Boss, she was sleeping next to a monster and had no idea." I closed the file. The anger from the other night, the anger I felt in the penthouse, was nothing. This was an abyss. This was a cancer that had hollowed out a piece of the city's authority and built a fortress of filth. "They're not just protecting an abuser," I said. "They're protecting an empire." "And Claire," Marco added quietly, "she doesn't just know about the abuse. She has proof of the entire operation. That's why Kellen is hunting her. She's not a victim. Dante, she's the witness who can burn their whole world to the ground." My path was suddenly terribly clear. This was no longer about a favor. This was about eradication. But first, I had a message to deliver. That night, I went to the Embers. It's an old cigar bar in the Gold Coast, all dark wood, green leather, and thick, expensive smoke. It's a place where politicians, judges, and men like me can sit in the same room and pretend we're not at war. Judge Alistair Monroe was in his usual booth. He was a large man, soft in the way that only old money and complete impunity can make you. He was swirling a brandy, a fat, unlit cigar in his other hand. I slid into the booth opposite him. I didn't ask. He looked up, his eyes widening in surprise, then narrowing in annoyance. "Mr. Moretti, this is a private club." "I'm a member, Alistair," I smiled. It wasn't a friendly one. "I just never come. The lighting is terrible." I signaled the waitress. "McAllen, 25. Neat." Monroe put his brandy down. He knew this wasn't a social call. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Officer Derek Kellen," I said, my voice low, cutting through the ambient hum of conversation and jazz. The judge's face went perfectly, beautifully still. He didn't blink. He just stared at me. He was good. "I'm not familiar with every officer in the city," he said, his voice smooth. "This one you are, he's in the 19th, hero cop, likes to beat women, has a side business with Frank Graziano, a very specific kind of side business, the kind that makes men disappear, the kind that ruins lives." I leaned in. The smoke from a nearby table swirled around my head. "He has a girl. Her name is Claire. He's been hunting her." "I'm a judge, Dante," Monroe said, his voice hardening. "I don't listen to precinct gossip." "This isn't gossip. This is a statement of fact. He's your man. You and Graziano are his partners, and I am telling you to stop." My drink arrived. I ignored it. "He's made the mistake of bringing his hobby into my world. He's hunting someone who is now under my protection." I picked up my glass and looked at the amber liquid. "So I'm here to tell you, as a courtesy, to call off your dog. You, him, Graziano, all of you. You will stop looking for her. You will forget her name. You will erase her from your memory." Monroe let out a small, arrogant laugh. "Are you threatening a sitting judge?" I finally met his eyes, and I let him see it. All of it. The cold, bottomless rage I kept chained up. "I don't make threats. Judge, I make calculations, and I'm calculating that your life, your pension, your reputation, and your ability to breathe are all worth more than one girl. If I am wrong, correct me." I smiled again. "If she gets so much as a hangnail, if someone even looks at her the wrong way, I'm not going to file a motion. I'm not going to call a lawyer. I am going to come for all three of you, and no law, no badge, and no black robe will be able to protect you." I put a $100 bill on the table for the drink. "It's a big city, but it's my city. Don't make me prove it." I left him there. He hadn't touched his cigar. I felt better. I had drawn the line. The call came the next afternoon. I was in a meeting, discussing shipping logistics. The burner phone vibrated in my pocket. My real meeting adjourned itself in half a second when I held up a hand. I answered, "Dante." He's here." It was Claire. Her voice was a terrified whisper. "Where is here? What happened? Are you in the apartment?" "No. I'm sorry. I needed toothpaste. I needed air. I went to the drugstore, the one on the corner. I thought it would be fine. But there's a man. He's been following me since I left the building." The ice in my veins was back. "Where are you right now?" "The bathroom. I'm in the bathroom stall. He was outside. He was just watching me by the magazines. He's not in uniform. Dante, I'm so scared. He saw me come in here." "Stay there. Lock the stall. Do not come out. Do not talk to anyone when I am 10 minutes away. Please hurry." 10 minutes. I was out of the social club in 30 seconds. I wasn't 10 minutes away. I was 15. I made it in 6. The sedan was a black blur, weaving through traffic. Running reds, horns blared. I didn't hear them. All I heard was the panic in her voice. I parked the car halfway on the sidewalk, leaving it running. I walked into the CVS like I was going to buy a pack of gum. My hand was on the cig, under my jacket. I scanned the aisles, pharmacy, cosmetics, seasonal, a few customers, a bored-looking cashier, and him. He was standing by the paper towels, pretending to read the label, but his eyes were locked on the women's restroom at the back of the store. He was average height, built like a brick. With a cheap suit and a bad haircut, he reeked of plain clothes. I walked up to him. I didn't slow down. "You're making a scene," I said quietly. He looked at me, surprised. "What? I'm just shopping." "No, you're not. You're tailing a woman. You're working for Derek Kellen." The color drained from his face. His hand instinctively went to his side, where his weapon would be. Mine was already out. I didn't point it at him. I just held it, low, at my hip. The muzzle pointed at the floor, but it was in my hand. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You are going to turn around. You are going to walk out of this store. You're going to get in your unmarked car. And you are going to tell Kellen and Graziano that the girl is mine. I don't know who you're talking about," he stammered. I stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the wool of my suit. "My name is Dante Moretti. You ask your bosses what that name means." I pressed the barrel of the cig just for a second against his ribs. He froze. "And you tell them that if I ever see you, or anyone who looks like you, within 1,000 yards of her again, I will not be this quiet. I will not be this polite. I will end you. Do you understand me?" He nodded, a jerky, terrified motion. "Now walk." He walked. He didn't look back. I watched him get into a gray Ford and peel out of the parking lot. I put the gun away. I took a breath. I walked to the back of the store. "Claire," I called out, my voice soft. "It's me. He's gone. You can come out." The lock on the stall clicked. She came out, her face paper white, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't say a word. She just walked into my arms and buried her face in my chest, her entire body shaking. I held her. I held her right there, in the aisle, between the tampons and the toilet paper, and I didn't care who saw. I just held her, stroking her hair. "It's okay," I murmured. "I've got you. He's gone. I've got you." "I was so stupid," she sobbed into my shirt. I wanted to feel normal for 5 minutes. "It's not your fault," I said. "It's mine. I was wrong." I let her out of the store, my arm around her shoulders. I put her in the sedan. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Back to the apartment?" "No," I said, pulling into traffic. "He's not stupid. He knows the building. That place is burned." "So, another one? Another safe house?" I shook my head. "No. No more hiding, not in the shadows." I drove toward the Gold Coast. "He wants to hunt you? Let him try. I'm taking you to the one place in this city where no one can touch you." "Where?" she whispered. I pulled into the private underground garage of my building, the one with the express elevator. "Home. I'm taking you to my home." The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. The lights came on automatically, revealing the 2-story walls of glass, the minimalist furniture, the endless, sprawling view of the city. Claire stepped out and just stopped. She looked around, her eyes wide, taking in the marble floors, the open-plan kitchen that was bigger than her old apartment, the steel and glass staircase that seemed to float in the air. "Dante," she breathed, This is where you live?" "This is it." I can't stay here." She backed up, almost bumping into the elevator door. This is your world. I don't belong here." I walked over to her. I stood in front of her, blocking her retreat. "He sent a man after you, after I warned a judge. He's not just arrogant anymore. He's desperate. And desperate men are sloppy, but they're also dangerous. Here, you are not in the shadows. You are in the heart of my world. You are in the safest place in Chicago. But I'm a mess. I'm danger." She gestured to herself, to her jeans and her cheap sweater. I'll bring him right to your door." "Let him come," I said, my voice flat. "I'm counting on it." I looked at her, standing there, so small and broken in the middle of my vast, empty life. "You're right," I said. "You don't belong in my world. My world is cold. It's built on favors and fear. But maybe," I said, taking a step closer, "maybe my world needs someone like you in it." She looked up at me, her green eyes searching mine, Someone, like me, I'm nobody. Dante. You're not nobody. You're the only person who's ever made a sound in this place. That night, I had one of my men bring her clothes, toiletries, anything she could possibly need. She took a long shower. When she came out, she was wearing a simple gray sleep shirt and cotton pants. Her hair was damp and dark, curling around her face. The bruises had faded to a sickly yellow, but she looked more human than I had ever seen her. I was on the terrace, drinking, the bourbon again. It was a habit I was falling back into. She slid the glass door open and stepped out. The wind was high, and it whipped her hair across her face. "You shouldn't be out here," I said, not looking at her. "It's cold." I couldn't sleep. She came and stood beside me at the glass railing, 30 floors down. The city was a river of light. You really live up here, like a king or a prisoner." "Both, sometimes," I said. We were quiet for a long time. The only sound was the wind. "I'm afraid," she said finally, her voice so small the wind almost stole it. "I know, but you're safe here." "No, that's not what I mean." She turned to face me. Her eyes were dark and deep. "I'm not afraid of him right now. I'm afraid of this. Of you." I turned to her. "I told you, I'm not going to hurt you." "I know." Her voice was trembling, but she held her ground. "But you make me feel, I don't know what I'm feeling. When you kissed me, and today, in the store, I set my glass down. I watched her. She was wrestling with herself. "After Derek," she whispered, looking down at her hands, "I promised myself I would never let a man have that kind of power over me again. I can't be weak." "Is that what you think this is?" I asked, my voice rough. "Weakness?" I reached out, slowly. I didn't touch her face. I touched her hair, just a single strand, rubbing it between my thumb and forefinger. It was so soft. "I look at you," I said, "and I don't see weakness. I see someone who threw boiling water at a monster and ran. I see someone who survived in a condemned building. I see someone who is still standing right here. You are the strongest person I have ever met, Claire." She looked up, and her eyes were shining. A tear spilled over and ran down her cheek. This time, I did touch her face. I wiped the tear away with my thumb. My hand was warm. Her skin was cold. I didn't mean to, but I couldn't stop myself. I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't like the first time. There was no hesitation. It was raw, and it was hungry, and it was full of all the things we hadn't said. It was the fear from the drugstore, the rage from the judge's threat, the loneliness of this glass cage. She gasped into my mouth, her hands coming up to grip my jacket. She wasn't holding on for safety. She was pulling me closer. I backed her against the glass wall of the terrace. The city lights were a halo around her. My other hand went to her waist, pulling her flush against me. She was trembling, but it wasn't from fear. It was from desire, a slow building, aching need that I felt in my own chest. I broke the kiss, resting my forehead against hers. We were both breathing hard. "Dante," she whispered. It was half a plea, half a prayer. "I know," I said. I kissed her again, slower this time, tender. I kissed her eyelids, the bruise on her jaw, the scar on her lip. I was mapping her pain. I was trying to erase it. She let herself feel wanted. She tilted her head back, giving me access to her throat. I kissed the pulse that was hammering there. Her fingers tangled in my hair, holding me there. I'm still broken," she whispered, her voice thick. "So am I whispered back, my lips against her skin. "We can be broken together." I lifted her. She was so light. She wrapped her legs around my waist, her arms around my neck. I carried her inside, through the living room, up the floating staircase. I carried her to my room. It was dark. The curtains opened to the city. I laid her on the bed, on the black silk comforter. I didn't turn on the light. We had the city. I stood over her. She looked at me, her eyes wide, uncertain. This was the moment, the hesitation. I didn't take off my clothes. I took off my jacket and my gun, dropping them on the floor. I lay down on the bed beside her, on top of the covers. I turned on my side to face her. She looked confused. "I told you," I said, my voice low. "I'm not him. This is not about that." I pulled the comforter back, and she slid under. I stayed on top. I watched her. I don't know how to be with anyone," she said, her voice small. "Then we don't have to be." I reached out and brushed the hair from her face. "Just stay. Let me watch you. Let me just be here." She let out a breath she'd been holding for years, a small, shaky sigh of relief. She turned on her side to face me. We were inches apart. "Thank you," she whispered. I leaned in and kissed her again. It was achingly tender. It was a promise. It was slow. It was the build of something far more powerful than passion. It was trust. She fell asleep like that, her hand clutching the front of my shirt. I stayed awake, watching her. The next morning, she woke up alone. I had moved to the couch at some point. I couldn't sleep. She found me in my office. I was on the phone with Marco. "I don't care." I was barking into the receiver. "I want his financials. I want every dime he's ever taken. Squeeze the source. I want it done by noon." She was standing in the doorway, wearing one of my black t-shirts. It swallowed her. She looked small and lost and beautiful. I saw her. My entire body, my entire tone changed. The steel in my voice vanished. "I'll call you back," I said, and hung up. "Good morning," I said, my voice soft. "You're different," she said, nodding at the phone. "On the call." "That's business. This is not." I stood up. "Did you sleep?" I did. For the first time. I think for the first time in a year. I actually slept. She walked into the office, looking around. It was organized. Books, files, not the office of a thug, the office of a CEO. Her eyes landed on the wall behind my desk. There was a single, old, framed newspaper clipping. She walked over to it. She read the headline, "Local teen dies of overdose. Justice system fails." The picture was of a girl, 19, dark hair, bright eyes, my eyes. "Eliana Moretti," Claire whispered. She looked at me. Your sister?" I sat down. The stone wall was back, the one I built around myself, my younger sister. Claire looked back at the article, then at a small stack of them in a file box on the shelf. She picked them up. The dealer was arrested. And the charges were dropped? Lack of evidence? "Alistair Monroe," I said, my voice flat. "He was the judge who threw out the case, the dealer. He was the son of a politician who owed Monroe a favor." Claire looked at me, and I could see the pieces clicking into place in her mind. They threw her away." I said, "I hadn't spoken about this in a decade. She was a good kid. She made a mistake. And the system, the justice you believe in, it rolled right over her. It didn't care. She was just collateral damage in their world of favors." "Dante," she whispered, her hand over her mouth. "I was 22, I said, staring at the clipping. "I swore, on her grave, that I would never be powerless again. I would never be in a position where I couldn't control the outcome. I didn't build this." I gestured to the penthouse, the city, for money. I built it for control. I built it so I could make my own rules, so I could be the one to decide who gets protected and who gets forgotten. She came to me. She put her small hand on my shoulder. She understood. She finally understood. The bond between us, forged in fear and tenderness, now sealed in shared pain. The burner phone on my desk rang. It was Marco. His voice was urgent. "Dante, it's bad. Kellen just made his move." "What?" I told Monroe. "He went around him. He went public. He filed a report this morning. He's claiming Claire is an unstable, violent ex-girlfriend who's been stalking him. He's saying she's mentally unbalanced, delusional, and dangerous. He's painted her as a fugitive." "He what?" "It gets worse. He got a bolo issued. Be on lookout. Her face, her name. It just went out to every cop in the city. They're not just looking for her, Dante. They're hunting her." I looked at Claire. She was watching me, her face pale, sensing the new disaster. I hung up the phone. I looked at the bolo alert Marco had just forwarded to my main screen. Her face, labeled violent and delusional. He was using his world, the world of badges and laws and lies. He was turning the entire city police force against her. I stood up. The time for defense was over. The time for hiding was over. "He wants to use his world against you," I said, my voice cold as the grave. "It's time I showed him mine. No more hiding." He had used the system. He had taken the law, the very thing meant to protect, and twisted it into a weapon aimed directly at her. The bolo alert painted Claire as a paranoid, violent stalker. It was a masterpiece of corruption, turning the victim into the perpetrator. Every cop in Chicago was now, officially, Kellen's personal hunting party. I looked at her, sitting on my couch, pale and shaking as she read the alert on my phone. He's won," she whispered, her voice hollow. I'm a fugitive. He did it." I took the phone from her hand and set it down. "No," I said, my voice quiet. "He just made his last mistake. He thinks he's fighting you, a woman he could terrorize. He doesn't understand. He's fighting me." I went to my desk. "You can't fight a public lie with silence. We have to fight his fire with our own." "How?" "He controls the police. He controls the judges. He controls the narrative." "But I control the street," I said, "and the street whispers louder than the courtroom." I made a call to Marco. My instructions were simple. I didn't want a news story. I wanted a leak. I wanted a rumor so dirty it would stick. Within 3 hours, a fake internal affairs memo was circulating among the precinct captains I owned. It was subtle. "Officer D, Kellen," it read. "Flagged for review regarding misuse of departmental resources and association with known criminal informants." It wasn't an accusation. It was a question. It was just enough to make his fellow cops, even the dirty ones, take half a step back. We were painting a target on his back. "This will make him nervous," I told Claire, pouring her a glass of water. Her hands were shaking too hard to hold it. "Nervous men get sloppy. They retaliate." "He'll come for me," she breathed. "He'll be even more desperate to silence me. I'm counting on it." The plan was simple. We would give him what he wanted, or at least, what he thought he wanted. The penthouse was a fortress, but it was also a target. I moved Claire that night, but I also moved a decoy. A woman from my organization, Sophia. She was new to the city. No traceable ties to me. She had Claire's dark hair, her height, her build. We put her in a 4th-floor walk-up in Wicker Park, an apartment leased under a fake name. We were sloppy on purpose. We used a car that could be traced back to a shell company. We let Kellen's network of watching cops see her. We baited the trap. Claire was with me, hidden in the sub-basement of the social club, a concrete room with no windows and one steel door. She hated it. This is wrong, Dante. You're putting someone else in danger. What if he—" "Sophia knows the risks," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "She's a professional. She's being paid more for this one night than you made in 2 years at that diner. Rico and his team are on her, on Kellen, on everyone. The second he moves, we move." We waited. It was the longest 36 hours of my life. The concrete room felt like a tomb. We ate sandwiches in silence. She tried to read, but her eyes just scanned the same page over and over. Then the burner phone rang. It was Rico. "He took her," he said. His voice was calm. "Kellen didn't do it himself. He sent 2 of his task force lackeys. They grabbed Sophia off the street. They think she's Claire. They're on the move. Are they armed? I asked, already strapping the cig to my back. Standard issue. They're not expecting trouble. They think they just grabbed a scared waitress. Where? Warehouse, South Side, by the Calumet River. The old shipping docks. He's there. Kellen is waiting for them. Good. I hung up. Claire looked at me, her eyes wide with terror. It's happening. It's happening. I checked the clip on my weapon. You stay here. Bolt the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Dante. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Please, don't kill him. Not for me. Not like this. I looked down at her hand on my arm. He's a rabid dog, Claire. I know, she cried, her voice cracking. But if you kill him, I'm just the girl who got a mob boss to kill her ex. I'm still his victim. I want him exposed. I want the world to see what he is. I want him ruined, not erased. I studied her face, the fire in her eyes. She didn't want revenge. She wanted justice, a concept I had abandoned 2 decades ago. I can't promise that, I said, my voice rough. If I have to choose between your life and his, I won't hesitate. She swallowed, but she nodded. Just try, please. I left her in the concrete room. I took 12 men. We didn't take the sedans. We took 2 black work vans, noiseless. We arrived at the docks in 30 minutes. The warehouse was a giant rust-colored box at the end of a dead-end pier. Rico was waiting in the shadows. 2 men outside, and he whispered, 1 front, 1 back. Kellen and the 2 others are inside. They have her in the main office. We go silent, I said. No guns unless they draw first. I want this. Controlled. I want him to know this isn't a gang fight. This is a judgment. My men moved like shadows. The 2 lookouts were taken down from behind. Garrots. Silent, unconscious in seconds. Not dead. We breached the side door. The inside of the warehouse stank of river water, rust and oil. The office was a glass box on a raised platform in the center. We could hear voices. Kellen's voice. He was screaming. No, you're not her. Where is the real Claire? Where is she hiding? We heard a slap. The sound echoed in the vast, empty space. That was enough. I walked out of the shadows, my footsteps loud on the concrete floor. I walked right up the metal stairs to the office. My men fanned out below, covering the exits. I pushed the door open. Kellen was standing over Sophia, who was tied to a chair. She had a split lip. He had his hand raised to hit her again. The other 2 cops were by the window, smoking. They all froze. Kellen's face went from rage to confusion to pure, unadulterated panic. Moretti, he breathed. He knew who I was. The rumor, the judge. It all clicked in his head. Officer Kellen, I said, my voice calm. I stepped inside. You're looking for the wrong woman. The 2 cops went for their guns. My men were faster. They were on them before they could even clear the leather. It wasn't a firefight, it was a takedown. The sounds were short, wet, and brutal. 2 bodies hit the floor, breathing but not moving. Kellen stared at me, his eyes wide. He tried to reach for his own weapon. I was across the room in 2 strides. I broke his wrist. He screamed, a high, thin sound. I grabbed the front of his shirt and slammed him against the wall, his feet dangling. She's a liar, he gasped, the words bubbling out of him. She's crazy. You, I said, my voice a low growl, are a trafficker. You are a pig who hides behind a badge, and you made the mistake of touching something that belongs to me. I didn't hit his face. I was controlled. I let him down, just enough so his toes touched. Then I shattered his kneecap with a precise, calculated kick. He collapsed, howling. This, I said, crouching down to his level, is a message from Claire. She wants you to know that she's not scared anymore. And this, I grabbed his broken wrist and squeezed, is from me. If you say her name, if you think her name, I will come back, and I will not stop at your knee. I stood up. I walked over to Sophia and cut her ropes. She stood, rubbing her wrists, her face a mask of professionalism. "He hits like a cop," she said simply. I nodded. "Go, van 2. She walked out. I looked back at Kellen, a pathetic, whimpering mess on the floor. Claire's words were in my ear. Exposed, not erased. I took out my burner phone. I dialed 911. "There's an officer down," I said to the dispatcher. "Warehouse on the Calumet River. Looks like a drug deal gone bad. Send an ambulance and send internal affairs. It's a mess." I dropped the phone on Kellen's chest. "You're a hero, officer. Explain this." I walked out, leaving him in the wreckage of his own corruption. When I got back to the social club, Claire was waiting by the steel door, pacing. The second she saw me, she ran to me, her hands flying to my face, my chest. Are you hurt? There's blood on your shirt." "Not mine." I held her shoulders. "It's done. He's alive, but he's broken. The police are on their way. He has to explain why 3 of his men are unconscious and why he was in a warehouse with a woman tied to a chair." She sagged against me, relief making her boneless. Thank you, Dante." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "This isn't over. We heard him. Now, we do it your way. We expose him." The next day, I took her to meet Sarah Jensen. Sarah was an independent journalist, sharp as a razor and utterly fearless. I had pulled her brother out of a $200,000 gambling debt a few years back. She didn't know me, but she trusted me. She was the only reporter in Chicago who couldn't be bought. We met in the back booth of a diner. I sat in silence. Claire talked. She talked for 2 hours. She laid it all out, the abuse, the threats, the files she copied, the trafficking, the names. Graziano, Monroe, Kellen. She gave Sarah the USB drive with the files. It wasn't a victim's story. It was a witness testimony. It was powerful. Sarah Jensen just listened, her pen flying across her notepad. When Claire was finished, Sarah closed the pad. This is big. This is Pulitzer big. It's also get you killed big." "I know," Claire said. "That's why I'm talking to you." "I'll need to verify," Sarah said. "You'll find it's all true," I said, speaking for the first time. "He's already in a hospital bed. Ask him how he got there." Sarah's eyes met mine. She understood. This will take me 48 hours. To write it, to fact-check it, to build a firewall so they can't kill it. Where will you be? "Gone," I said. I took Claire out of the city. We drove for 2 hours, north, past the state line. We drove until the city was just a bad memory. I took her to my family's villa. It was on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. It was old stone, covered in ivy, built by my grandfather with steel money. It was a fortress of solitude. No one in my current life knew it existed. Claire stepped out of the car and just breathed. The air was clean, smelling of pine and water. "Dante, it's beautiful." "It's safe," I said. "No one will find us here." For 2 days, we waited. The threat was outside, somewhere far away. Inside, there was only silence. The old house was quiet. The tension slowly bled out of her. I saw her shoulders drop from around her ears. The first night, I found her standing in the library, staring at the empty fireplace. She was still vibrating, a low-level hum of anxiety. "You need to wash the last few weeks off," I said. I went to the master bathroom. It had an old, massive clawfoot tub. I turned on the taps, the water steaming. I poured in salts. She came and stood in the doorway, watching me. I can't," she whispered. "I feel dirty, but I'm afraid to relax." I turned off the water. I looked at her. "Get in." She hesitated, then slowly, she locked the door, undressed, and slid into the hot water. I waited. I heard her sigh. I knocked. "Claire?" I'm in." I unlocked the door with the master key and came in. She was submerged to her neck. Her eyes closed. I didn't look at her body. I grabbed a stool, sat down beside the tub, and picked up the washcloth. "Turn around," I said quietly. She did, her back to me. I soaked the cloth and began to wash her back. My movements were slow, methodical, not sexual. It was a service. It was about care. I washed the tension from her shoulders, the fear from her neck. She leaned her head back against the rim of the tub. She didn't speak. I took the shampoo and poured it into my hand. Tilt your head back. I slid my hands into her hair. It was soft. I worked my fingers against her scalp, washing away the city, the safe houses, the fear. She made a small sound in her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated relief. We stayed like that in the silence, just the sound of the water. Later that night, she found me in the kitchen. I couldn't sleep. I was drinking wine. Not bourbon, wine. I had put an old record on the turntable in the den, Etta James. Her voice was filling the old house, low and soulful. Claire stood in the doorway, wearing one of my sweaters. I set my glass down. I held out my hand. Dance with me. What? I don't know how, she whispered. It's not hard. Just follow my lead. She slowly walked over and put her hand in mine. I pulled her close. My hand went to the small of her back. Her other hand rested, hesitantly, on my shoulder. We moved in the kitchen, a slow, shuffling dance, our feet brushing the old tile. You're a very good dancer, she whispered against my chest. I'm Italian, I said. It's required. She looked up at me, and she laughed. It was the first time. It wasn't a bitter laugh, or a scared laugh. It was a real, genuine, beautiful sound. It filled the kitchen. It filled the hole in my chest. It hit me harder than any bullet ever had. I stopped dancing. I just held her. I realized I was happy. It was a foreign, dangerous feeling. I realized I was looking at this woman, and I was seeing a life beyond blood and revenge. We sat by the fire, the music still playing. She was tracing the healing scabs on my knuckles from my talk with Kellen. I'm afraid, she said, her voice quiet. I told you, he can't find us here. No. She met my gaze. Her eyes were clear, no longer clouded by panic. I'm afraid that I'm too broken, that even if we win, even if he's exposed, I'll never be whole again. He took too much. I took her hand, turning it over, tracing the lines on her palm. You're not broken, Claire, I said, my voice rough. You're scarred. You're dented, but you're not broken. I leaned in, cupping her face. Broken things. They can be mended. They just fit together differently. I kissed her. It was the most vulnerable I have ever been. It wasn't the hungry kiss from the penthouse. It was raw. It was slow. It was a promise to rebuild. She kissed me back, her fingers tangling in my hair, her tears wet on my cheeks. My burner phone buzzed on the mantel. We broke apart. I looked at the screen. A text from Sarah Jensen. It was a link. I opened it. The headline was across the top of her independent news site, stark and brutal. Chicago's finest, Officer Kellen's secret war on women, corruption, and the trafficking ring the badge protects. It was live. It was out. She did it, Claire breathed, reading over my shoulder. Oh my God, Dante, she did it. The article was shared 1,000 times in the first 10 minutes. It was going viral. We had won. At that same moment, back in Chicago, Derek Kellen was sitting in his apartment, his arm in a cast, his knee in a brace. His phone was exploding. He saw the article, and he read his name, and he read the word trafficking. He snapped. He drove to Sarah Jensen's office. It was dark. He broke the lock, stormed inside, and tore the place apart. He was an animal, trapped and bleeding. He was looking for anything, a source, an address. He found her desk, he found her research, and he found a photograph. It was one Sarah's assistant had taken, discreetly, outside the diner. It was a picture of me, helping Claire out of the car. He stared at my face. Dante Moretti. He swept the desk clear, his rage echoing in the empty room, and then he saw it. Tacked to her corkboard, an old research file, a file on my family, and on top of it, a single faded photograph of the villa, the one on the lake. He knew. He knew exactly where we were. The article was a bomb, in the quiet of the villa. We watched the shockwave spread. It was picked up by local news, then national. The Chicago Police Department's server crashed from the traffic. The mayor's office issued a no comment. The silence was deafening. But the war wasn't over. We had just made it public. He knows, I said, looking out at the calm lake, the photo of the villa on Sarah's corkboard. It was a rookie mistake, hers, for having it, mine, for not anticipating it. He knows where we are, Claire finished, her voice flat. She wasn't panicked. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. We can't stay here. This is your family's home. I won't let him bring his filth here. He won't, I said. He's trapped. The bolo on you is a joke now. The whole city knows you're the victim. He's the one being hunted. He's an animal, Dante, and he's cornered. She turned to me, her green eyes clear. We have to go back. We have to finish this. I have to finish this. She was right. Hiding was over. We drove back to Chicago, not in the quiet sedan, but in an armored SUV with a follow car. The city we returned to was in an uproar. Every news channel was running Kellen's picture next to the words corruption and trafficking. We didn't go to the penthouse. We went to the social club. The basement was now a command center. Marco and Rico were already there. Maps of the 19th precinct spread across a table. Boss, Marco greeted me, his face grim. The city is on fire. Graziano has gone to ground. Monroe is on vacation, but Kellen is still active. His superiors can't find him. He's off the grid. He's still got his badge, his gun, and a few loyalists. He's a ghost, I said. This is good, Claire said, walking up to the table. The men looked at her, surprised to see her in their sanctuary. She didn't flinch. He's running. He's cut off from his protectors. Now is the time. Time for what? I asked, watching her. Sarah's article gave us the public. Now we need the system. While she was writing, I made a call from the burner to a man she recommended, a Lieutenant Miller in Internal Affairs. He sounded different. He sounded clean. He wants to meet. My blood went cold. No. Dante, yes, this is how we win. This is how we get the files, the testimony, into official hands, hands that aren't dirty. It's a trap. Claire, Internal Affairs is just another room in the same rotten building. You're the city's #1 target. They'll hand you right back to Kellen. Miller is the one who's been trying to build a case against Graziano for a year, she argued, her voice rising. He just didn't have a witness. Now he does. He wants to meet me. Tonight. Absolutely not. I'll send Marco. I'll send the files. He wants me, and she insisted, planting her hands on the table. He needs to hear it from my mouth. He needs to know I'm credible, that I'm not just a tool of yours. She looked at me. I have to do this myself. I won't be the girl you rescued. I'll be the woman who burned them to the ground. I stared at her for a long, hard minute. The woman I found hiding in a stairwell was gone. This woman was a queen, a dangerous, reckless, beautiful queen. I scrubbed a hand over my face. I hate this. I know. You are not going alone. That is not a request. I turned to my men. This is not a war. We are not hitting back. We are protecting. This is a bubble. She is the asset. I want eyes on every roof, every car, every street corner within a 6-block radius of the meet. I want Rico in the opposite building with a scope. I want a team in the garage. I want a clean car waiting. No one gets near her. I looked back at Claire. Where? The library, she said. The main branch, in the underground parking garage. 9 o'clock. He said it's public, covered in cameras. He thinks it's the safest place. He's an idiot, I growled. A garage is a box. It's a kill zone. It's tonight, Dante. It's the only way. I hated it. I hated every single second of it. I prepped my men for 2 hours. We went over blueprints. We timed the elevators. We had jamming signals ready. I was prepping for a war I had promised I wouldn't start. At 8:30, Claire was ready. She was wearing simple jeans and a dark jacket. She looked calm. I was a wreck. I was a bundle of raw nerves, my hand clenching and unclenching. "Dante," she said, coming up to me in the concrete basement. I was staring at the surveillance feed we'd already hacked from the library garage. "It's too open, too many blind spots." She put her hands on my chest, forcing me to look at her. "I will be fine. You'll be watching." "That's what I'm afraid of." She reached up and kissed me. It wasn't a desperate kiss. It was slow and deep and full of promise. "See you in an hour," she whispered against my lips. I watched her walk out with two of my men, who would drive her and then melt away. "Rico," I said into my earpiece. "You on her?" "Got her, boss." His voice crackled back. "She's in the car. We're 5 minutes out." I was in a van a block away, watching a bank of monitors. I saw her car pull into the garage. I saw her get out. She was alone, just as she was supposed to be. "Level C, Section 4, I murmured. "She's in position." "I see her," Rico said. "She's alone. No sign of Miller." "Stay on her." She stood by a concrete pillar, checking her watch. 5 minutes passed, then 10. "Dante," she whispered. She had an earpiece. "Audio only. He's late." "Get out of there," I said. "Now, walk to the elevator. Abort." "No, wait, no, I see someone." A man in a suit was walking toward her, but he wasn't looking at her. He was looking around. "That's not Miller." Rico's voice was sharp. "That's... shit. That's one of Graziano's men. Boss, it's a set." "Claire, run!" I roared into the mic. "Run now!" She turned, but it was too late. A car, its lights off, screeched around the corner. It pinned her against the pillar. She didn't even have time to scream. The passenger door flew open. It was Kellen. His face was a mask of rage, his arm in a sling, his leg in a brace. He lunged out of the car, a black object in his good hand. "Claire!" I was out of the van, running. I was a block away. I was an eternity away. I heard her scream, a high, thin sound that was cut off by the unmistakable crack of a taser. I saw her body convulse and drop. "Move!" I yelled to my men. "All teams, converge! He has her! He has her!" Kellen dragged her limp body into the car. The man in the suit got in the driver's seat. The car peeled out, smashing through the wooden gate of the garage, and disappeared into the night. I got to the garage level. It stank of burned rubber. Her burner phone was on the concrete, smashed. I slammed my fist into the pillar. The rage was so total, so absolute. I went blind with it. "Boss," Rico's voice was in my ear, shaking. They had a jammer. We didn't see them until it was too late. We have a tail. But it's a clean car. We'll lose them." "Where is he taking her?" I growled, my mind racing. Not his apartment, not Graziano's. Where? I looked at Marco, who had just run up. "He needs a place he controls," Marco said, his face pale. "A place off the books, a place the clean cops don't know about." "The holding location," I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The trafficking, the place they disappear people from. I grabbed Marco. "The warehouse was a decoy. Where's the real one?" We never found it," Marco said. "It was too deep." "Find it," I roared. "I want every resource we have. I want every cop on my payroll, every informant, every street rat. Tear this city apart until you find that building. You have 1 hour." We deployed a full sweep. It was war. I had lied. I woke up on a cold, wet floor. My head felt like it was splitting in two, the metallic taste of the taser in my mouth. My hands were bound behind me with thick zip ties. I was in a small, windowless room. A single, bare bulb hung from the ceiling. It stank of bleach and old fear. "She's awake." I looked up. Derek Kellen was sitting on a chair in the corner, a bottle of whiskey in his good hand. His face was a ruin. The bruises from Dante's message had settled into deep, ugly shades of purple and yellow. His eyes were the worst. They were wide, unblinking, and utterly insane. "Hello, Claire," he whispered. "Miss me?" "Derek," I said, my voice hoarse. I tried to sit up, but my muscles spasmed. "Don't bother," he said, taking a pull from the bottle. That's a 500,000-volt taser. You'll be shaky for a while. Where are we?" This is where the bad people go," he smiled. "This is where the liars and the whores disappear. This is where you should have gone in the first place." "It's over, Derek," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The article is out. Everyone knows. Graziano is gone, Monroe is gone, it's just you." His face contorted. "It's not over, it's never over. You did this. You ruined me." He lurched to his feet, wincing as his bad knee took his weight. He staggered over and kicked me, hard in the ribs. I cried out, curling into a ball. "You were mine," he screamed, his voice cracking. "You were mine, and you were perfect, and you were clean. And he poisoned you, that wop." He was rambling, pacing the small room like a caged animal. "I saw the pictures. You, with him, Dante Moretti, the prince of the city. You left me. You left a hero for a piece of filth like that. He got in your head. He poisoned your mind." "He didn't poison me, Derek," I gasped, the pain in my ribs sharp as a knife. He saved me from you." "Saved you?" He laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "He didn't save you. He used you. People like him don't save. They own... But that's okay. I'm going to fix it." "How, Derek? By killing me? It's too late. The files are out. Sarah, Lieutenant Miller. They have everything. Killing me won't change anything." "Oh, but that's where you're wrong," he whispered, crouching down in front of me. His breath was hot, sour with whiskey. "It's not about the files anymore. It's about us. He took what was mine. I'm going to take what's his. He's coming, you know." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Oh, yeah, I left him a little breadcrumb. The car we took you in, it's got a tracker, my own tracker. I knew his people would be looking. I want him to come. I want him to come here. I want him to watch." He was unraveling, the threads of his sanity snapping one by one. "He's going to come in here," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "And he's going to see you. And he's going to know that I won. And then..." He pulled his service weapon from his hip. He checked the clip. "And then I'm going to put a bullet in his head. And then I'll put one in yours. And we'll be together. Finally." He was completely, terrifyingly gone. Just as he said it, a loud boom shook the entire building. It sounded like a battering ram hitting a steel door. Kellen's head snapped up. A look of pure, ecstatic joy spread across his ruined face. "He's here," he whispered. "Showtime." "It's a meat packing plant," Marco yelled over the sound of the van's engine. "The old Union Yards. Kellen's uncle owned it. It's been defunct for 10 years. The tracker on the car had been a plant, but a sloppy one. Kellen was so far gone. He'd used a car registered to a holding company that we'd already linked to Graziano. It took us 40 minutes. 40 minutes too long. We didn't knock. We hit the front loading dock with the armored van. The steel door crumpled like tinfoil. My men fanned out, 12 of us armed, ready for war. "Clear!" one team yelled. "Packing floor is clear!" "This way," Rico shouted, pointing to a set of stairs leading down. "Basement, cold storage." We moved down the stairs, into the guts of the building. The smell of bleach was overwhelming, but underneath it was the old, coppery smell of blood. We hit a steel door. It was locked. "Breach it," I ordered. 2 of my men set a charge. The explosion was contained, deafening. The door blew inward. We stormed the room. The first thing I saw was Claire. She was on the floor, tied, alive. The second thing I saw was Kellen. He was in the far corner, using his one good arm to hold a gun to his own head. "That's far enough," he screamed, his eyes wild. "One more step, Moretti, and I'll do it. I'll blow my goddamn head off." "Go ahead," I said, my voice ice. I kept walking toward him. It'll save me the trouble. My men were fanned out behind me, their weapons all trained on him. "No!" he shrieked. You don't get it. You don't win. I was 10 feet away from him. "Dante, no!" Claire screamed from the floor. He's insane. Kellen looked at her. That second of distraction was all I needed. I wasn't going to let him shoot himself. That was too easy. I lunged. I hit him like a train. We smashed against the concrete wall. His gun went skittering across the floor. His bad knee buckled, and he screamed. But he was strong, fueled by whiskey and madness. He twisted, his good arm snaking around my neck. We went down, rolling on the filthy floor. This wasn't a clean fight. This was a brawl. It was rage and desperation. He was trying to get his fingers into my eyes. I was trying to break his arm. He was screaming, animal sounds. "You took her from me. Poisoned? Mine." I slammed my palm into his nose. I felt the cartilage crunch. Blood exploded across both of us. He roared and surged up. I hadn't seen the knife, the one from his ankle sheath. He had it in his left hand, the one from the sling. He drove it down. I twisted, but not fast enough. I felt a white-hot, searing pain in my side, just above my hip. "Dante!" Claire's scream was primal. The pain cleared my head. It focused me. I looked down. The knife was still in me. He was trying to pull it out for another strike. I grabbed his wrist, the one holding the knife. I didn't try to pull it out. I pushed it, twisting it to the side, breaking the blade off in my own body. He howled in shock. I used the opening. I hit him, once. A straight, brutal cross to the jaw. His head snapped back and hit the concrete wall. Then I hit him again, and again, and again. I was hitting him for the stairwell, for the taser, for the knife in my side. I was hitting him for Eliana. "Boss?" Marco's voice was in my ear. "Boss, he's down. He's out. Dante, stop." I was breathing like a freight train, my fist raised for another blow. Kellen was unconscious. His face was a pulp, but he was breathing. I held the last punch. I held it, trembling with the effort, exposed, not erased. I collapsed backward, leaning against the wall, the adrenaline fading, the fire in my side roaring to life. Dante. Claire was there. One of my men had cut her free. She scrambled across the floor to me, her hands hovering over my face, my chest. She saw the blood. She saw the handle of the knife still lodged in my side. "Oh, God," she sobbed. "Oh, my God, you're bleeding." She touched my face, her fingers tracing the splatter of Kellen's blood. You came for me." "I told you I would," I gasped, the words thick. I reached up, my hand shaking, and cupped her face. "You're okay?" "I'm okay," she was sobbing, half laughing, the tears washing the grime from her face. You're an idiot. You're a reckless, crazy, beautiful idiot." I pulled her to me. I held her, my head buried in her hair, breathing her in. She was trembling. Or maybe I was. I couldn't tell. I was shaking, not from the fight, not from the pain. I was shaking from the sheer, crushing weight of almost losing her, the weight of not losing her. "We need to get you out of here, boss," Marco said, his voice urgent. "I've got a doctor." "No," I said, my voice firm. "Wait, what are we waiting for?" As if on cue, we heard the sound, sirens. Not one or two, a dozen, they were outside. "The police," Marco said, drawing his weapon. "We gotta go." "No," I said again, holding up a hand. "They're not for us." The doors to the basement burst open, but it wasn't my men. It was cops, uniformed, clean, weapons drawn. They were led by a man in a suit. "Lieutenant Miller, Internal Affairs," he shouted. "CPD, drop your—" He stopped when he took in the scene. My men, heavily armed, standing over a dozen other unconscious rogue cops my teams had rounded up in the plant. Me, bleeding against a wall, holding Claire, and Derek Kellen, unconscious, a literal fallen hero, at my feet. My God, Miller breathed. Lieutenant, a voice said from behind him. Sarah Jensen pushed past the cops, her phone out, recording. I believe you were supposed to meet with my witness? Miller looked at Claire. Miss, are you okay? Claire stood up, pulling away from me. She stood on her own, in the center of the room. She was covered in dirt, her hair a mess, but she looked powerful. I'm Claire, she said, her voice clear and strong, and I'm ready to make my statement. Miller looked at Kellen, then at me. He was smart enough to see the whole story. Get him cuffed, Miller ordered, motioning to Kellen. Get these other bastards cuffed, and somebody get him an ambulance. 2 officers rushed over to Kellen, hauling him up, slapping cuffs on his wrists. He was starting to groan, his eyes fluttering. It was over. This time, there was too much evidence, too many witnesses. Sarah Jensen was live streaming. It was over. He was arrested. He was done. I didn't wake up in a hospital. Hospitals are for civilians. Hospitals have records and questions and cops. I woke up in my own bed, in the penthouse, with the curtains drawn against the midday sun. The smell of antiseptic was sharp. Don't move, Dante. Doctor, Alessi. He'd been my father's physician, and now he was mine. He was 70 years old, with hands as steady as a surgeon's. The blade was cheap, he said, taping a white gauze pad to my side. It broke off clean. You're lucky. It missed your kidney by an inch. You'll be sore for a month, and I gave you a tetanus shot. You looked like you were rolling in a sewer. Where is she? My voice was a dry rasp. Alessi didn't look up. He means the girl, he said to Marco, who was standing in the shadow by the door. She's safe, boss, Marco said, stepping forward. She's with Miller, at the federal building. She's been giving her statement for 6 hours. I tried to sit up. The pull on the stitches was like a hot wire. I ignored it. She's alone? With cops? It's different now. Dante, Marco said. Miller is clean. The feds are involved. Sarah Jensen is sitting in the room with her, along with 2 lawyers I hired. She's not a witness anymore. She's a sensation. He turned on the television, and there she was. It was a live press conference on the steps of the federal building. She was surrounded by a sea of microphones. She wasn't the girl I found in the stairwell, shaking and covered in blood. She wasn't the woman I held in the villa, laughing in the kitchen. This was someone new. She was wearing a simple, dark blue dress. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was pale, the bruises faded, but her eyes were on fire. She was calm. She was steady. And what happened to me was not unique, she was saying, her voice clear and carrying over the bank of speakers. I was just the one who made a wrong call. The system that is supposed to protect us is broken. It was built by men like Derek Kellen and protected by men like Frank Graziano and Alastair Monroe. They used their power not to serve, but to hunt. A reporter shouted a question. Are you afraid of retaliation from the rest of the officers in the 19th precinct? Claire didn't blink. She looked right into the camera, right at me. I am not afraid anymore, and she said, the fear is what they use to control us. The silence is where they hide. I will not be silent, and I will not be afraid, not for myself, and not for the women who came before me, or the ones who will come after. She was a queen. She had taken her pain and forged it into a spear. I watched her for an hour. I watched her become a voice for every person the system had ever failed, and I felt a surge of pride so fierce it almost tore my stitches. But I also felt a distance. She was in the light now. Her name was a symbol of justice, of survival. My name was still Dante Moretti. I was the shadow that had moved behind the scenes. The press was already asking questions about the other armed men at the warehouse, about the anonymous tip that led them there. Miller was covering for me, calling it a rival criminal element. But the truth was what it was. I was the darkness. She was the light. And I knew, with the certainty of a man who understands how the world works, that the darkness taints the light to protect her, really protect her. I had to stay away. I didn't call. The next few days, I watched the city I built tear itself apart. Graziano and Monroe were indicted. The trafficking ring was shattered. Kellen was in a hospital jail ward, awaiting a trial that was a foregone conclusion. My side healed. The penthouse felt too quiet, too empty. I was restless. The silence of the place magnified by her absence. A week after the press conference, I couldn't take the glass cage anymore. I drove myself. No driver, no bodyguards. I went to the one place the silence felt right. The cemetery. It was an old Catholic cemetery on the north side, quiet, with weeping willows and old tilted headstones. The air smelled of damp earth and cut grass. I stood in front of her grave. Eliana Moretti, beloved sister. I put my hand on the cold marble. I got him. Eliana, I whispered. Not Monroe. Not the one who let your killer walk. Not yet. But I got one of them. I got a man just like him. It mattered. I know it did. Her voice. I didn't even turn. I knew the sound of her footsteps on the gravel path. She came to a stop beside me, her shoulder almost brushing mine. She didn't speak for a long time. She just looked at the headstone. This is her, she said. It wasn't a question. This is her, I confirmed. We stood in silence, two statues in the quiet. I gave my final deposition this morning, she said, her voice soft. It's done. Miller has everything. You were good, I said, my voice rough. On the television, you were strong. I kept thinking about what you said, about control. I focused on that. I controlled the story. She finally turned to look at me, her green eyes searching my face. Why didn't you call me Dante? I looked away from her, back at the headstone. I watched you, on the news. You're a voice. Claire. You're clean. You're a symbol. And you're not? Me? I let out a harsh laugh. I'm the man who shattered Kellen's face in a basement. I'm the man who threatened a judge. I'm the man whose men took down 2 cops in that warehouse. I am the shadow. Claire, you. You stand in the light. The two don't mix. You think I care about that? Her voice was rising, that familiar fire coming back. You think, after everything, I care what the news calls you. It's not about what they call me, I snapped, turning to face her. It's about what I am. I taint you. Claire, I put you in danger. My world, it'll swallow you. I did what I had to do. I got you free. Now, you are free. Go be the hero they think you are. She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. Then she did the last thing I expected. She slapped me. It wasn't a hard slap. It was just sharp. A crack that echoed in the quiet of the cemetery. My head snapped to the side. You don't get to do that, she whispered, her voice shaking with rage. You don't get to decide for me. You don't get to be my savior and then throw me away because you think I'm too clean for you. You don't know me at all. Claire, I'm not clean. Dante, I'm a mess. I'm just as broken as you are. You said it yourself. We're broken together. Her hands fisted in the front of my jacket. You think I give a damn about a reputation? I care about the man who came for me in a stairwell. I care about the man who held me when I was having a nightmare. I care about the man who stood in front of me in a basement full of monsters. She buried her face in my chest. Don't leave me, please. I wrapped my arms around her, my resolve crumbling. The stitches in my side pulled, a sharp, grounding pain. I don't know how to be the man you need me to be, I confessed, my voice thick. I don't know how to be good. This. I nodded at the graves, at the city beyond. This is what I am. It's blood and it's control. It's all I've known since I was 22. I can't fully change. Claire, I can't just walk away from the family. It's It's who I am." She pulled back, just enough to look up at me. Her eyes were wet, but fierce. "I'm not asking you to," she said, her voice soft but iron strong. "I'm not asking you to stop being Dante Moretti. I'm not asking you to leave your world." She put her hand on my chest, right over my heart. "I'm asking you to choose." I looked at her, confused. "You built this," she said, her gaze sweeping around. This control. Because of her. Because the system failed you. You built it to get your own justice. So, do it. Choose who you protect. Choose why you fight." Her grip on my jacket tightened. "Don't let the power be the reason. Let justice be the reason. Your justice. The kind that protects the people the light doesn't reach. The kind that she deserved." I stared at her. I had seen her as a victim. I had seen her as a survivor. But I had never seen her as this. She wasn't just my partner. She was my conscience, my purpose. She was reframing my entire life, not redemption, evolution. "If I do this," I whispered, my hand covering hers on my chest, If I try, it won't be clean. It will be messy." "I'm not afraid of messy," she whispered back. "I'm only afraid of being without you." I kissed her. I kissed her right there, in the quiet of the cemetery, in front of my sister's grave. It wasn't a kiss of passion or of grief. It was a kiss of acceptance, a vow. It was the sound of two broken pieces clicking into place. We went back to the villa. The city was too loud, too full of ghosts. We needed to heal. The trial was a storm. Kellen, Monroe, Graziano. They all went down hard, Claire testified. She was brilliant, cold, precise, and unbreakable. I watched, this time from the back row of the courtroom, in the shadows. When Kellen was sentenced to life, he looked at her. She just stared back, her face blank. He was nothing. When it was over, we went back to the stone house on the lake, and we began to rebuild. I saw her change. The victim was gone. The survivor was evolving. I found her one morning on the vast lawn overlooking the lake. Rico was with her. He was showing her how to stand, how to breathe, how to hold a 9mm. I watched from the terrace. She was hesitant, her arms shaking, but she did it. She held the weapon, she aimed, she fired. The shot was wide, but she didn't flinch from the recoil. She turned, sensing me. Her face was pale but determined. "I will never," she said, her voice loud enough to carry on the wind, "be helpless again." She began training, not just with guns, with Rico. In hand-to-hand, she learned how to break a hold, how to use an attacker's weight against them, and she worked. She was on the phone constantly, with Sarah, with advocacy groups, with Lieutenant Miller. She was building a network, her own network. And I was working, too. My calls were different. I was still the boss. I was still the shadow. But the mission had changed. "Marco," I said, pacing my grandfather's library, "that judge in the 3rd District, the one who keeps letting rapists walk on technicalities. I want his financials. I want to know who he owes. I want to know what his vices are." "And then?" Marco asked. "And then? We're going to control him. We're going to make him do the right thing." I was using my network, the shadow machine, but I was aiming it at the rot. I was dismantling other corrupt rings, just as she'd said, quietly. No blood, just control, for the right reasons, my justice. One night, I woke from a nightmare, the one where I don't get to the garage in time. I sat up, breathing hard. The bed beside me was empty. I found her. She was in the library, curled up in the big leather armchair, asleep with a law book on her lap. I stood there for a long time, just watching her. The moonlight from the tall windows was on her face. She was so beautiful, so strong. I must have made a sound. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw me. A soft, sleepy smile touched her lips. "You're watching me," she whispered. "That's a little creepy, Dante." I smiled. I like the view. I walked over and sat on the edge of the ottoman, taking the heavy book from her lap. Bad dreams? You, I said. I dreamed. I didn't get there in time. But you did, she said softly. She reached out, her fingers tracing the healed scar on my side, through my shirt. You always do. She looked at my face. What are you thinking about? You look miles away. I took her hand, lacing my fingers with hers. I was thinking about fate. I looked into the empty fireplace. My father. He believed in it. He said our lives were written in stone before we were born. I always hated that. I believed in choice. I believed in will. I believed I was the master of my own world. I turned my head, meeting her gaze. Her green eyes were clear in the moonlight. I never believed in fate, I whispered, my voice rough. Not for 1 second, not until a wrong number, at 2 a.m, led me to a stairwell on the west side. Not until I found you. Dante, she breathed. You weren't in my plan. Claire, you ruined my plan. You came into my life of stone and silence, and you set it on fire. I'm sorry, she whispered, a tear trailing down her temple. No, I said, leaning in. I wiped the tear away with my thumb. You didn't ruin it. You saved it. You gave it a purpose. You gave me a purpose. I kissed her. It wasn't the kiss from the nightmare or the desperate one in the penthouse. It wasn't the kiss of comfort in the safe house. It was final. It was deep. It was slow. It was the promise of 1,000 mornings, of 1,000 fights, of 1,000 quiet nights just like this. It was a vow, made flesh. It was everything. The next morning, we walked the bluff. The sky over the lake was a dark, bruised purple. A storm was rolling in, the wind sharp, whipping her hair across her face. Claire looked at the dark clouds, at the white caps on the water. It looks bad, she said. A storm is coming. I looked at the horizon. It's always coming. I said, it was the truth. My world, our world. The fight was never over. I held out my hand. She looked at it, then at me. A small smile touched her lips. She took it. Her hand was warm in mine. Are you afraid? I asked. She looked at the churning, angry sky. She looked at me. Her grip tightened. No, she said, not anymore. We turned, side by side, and started walking back to the house. The first fat drops of rain began to fall. We weren't unafraid, but we were, finally, together, choosing each other every single step of the way. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed the journey with Dante and Claire. We would love to know where you're listening from, so please drop a comment and say hello. Make sure to subscribe to Mafia Romance Stories for more content just like this. And finally, let us know what you thought of the story. Your feedback means the world to us. Please share your thoughts in English.